Rachel was Jacob's wife, the mother of Joseph and Benjamin. Her story is recorded in the book of Genesis, and she is one of the most well-known women in biblical history. The name Rachel in Hebrew means sheep, and in this video you will learn the true story of Rachel in the Bible. So, subscribe to our channel and also activate all notifications to receive more Bible studies like this one. Rachel was the younger daughter of Laban, the brother of Rebekah and son of Bethuel. Since Rebekah was Jacob's mother, Rachel and Jacob were first cousins. Rachel also had an older sister named Leah. In Genesis chapter 29, verse 17, the Bible describes Rachel as a very beautiful woman, but some verses in the book of Genesis seem to indicate that Rachel was not entirely free from the pagan influences of her household, unlike Sarah and Rebekah, who readily adopted the God of Abraham and Isaac. Even after many years of marriage to Jacob, Rachel still stole her father's idols. Although the biblical text does not explain Rachel's motive for this, some commentators suggest that Rachel's action might have been related to the distribution of inheritance in her father's house. Rachel's story begins in the Bible right after the episode in which Jacob deceived Isaac and received his blessing instead of Esau, his brother, who then desired to kill him. To find a wife among his relatives, Jacob traveled to Paddan Aram. The first encounter between Jacob and Rachel happened near a well. Rachel had gone to the well to water her father's sheep, and Jacob rolled the stone away from the well for her. According to Genesis chapter 29, verse 11, it can be said that Jacob loved Rachel at first sight. He made an agreement with Laban to marry her. The agreement was that Jacob would work for 7 years for Rachel. At this point, the Bible describes Jacob's deep love for Rachel, informing us that the 7 years seemed to him like only a few days because of how much he loved her. So, when the 7 years were completed, the bride's father hosted a grand banquet to celebrate the wedding. However, Laban deceived Jacob and gave his daughter Leah as his wife instead of Rachel. To justify his actions, Laban claimed that it was not customary in that land to marry off the younger daughter before the older one. Interestingly, this was not a widespread custom in the ancient Near East, nor is it confirmed by documents from that time, such as the Nutsi-Akkadian tablets. It also seems strange that Jacob would be unaware of such a custom after living there for 7 years. Therefore, it is highly likely that Laban invented the story or took advantage of a less prominent custom as an excuse to justify his deception for personal gain. Regardless, when Jacob discovered that he had been deceived, he confronted Laban. Laban then proposed a new agreement. Jacob could marry Rachel in exchange for another 7 years of work. Since Jacob deeply loved Rachel, he agreed to Laban's proposal. He completed the week-long festivities associated with his marriage to Leah, and afterward, he married Rachel, committing to work an additional 7 years for Laban. In the biblical narrative that follows, it becomes very clear that Jacob loved Rachel more than Leah. However, Leah bore children for Jacob, which caused jealousy in Rachel. At one point, Rachel even pressured Jacob as if he were responsible for her barrenness, making the well-known declaration, "Give me children, or I shall die." In the cultural context of that time and region, a barren woman was often considered worthless and a source of shame for her husband. Rachel, therefore, took advantage of an ancient regional custom that allowed a socially elevated but barren woman to offer her personal servant to her husband so that the servant could bear children on her behalf. The children would be considered legitimate heirs of the wife. One interesting detail is that, according to a tradition in the ancient Near East, the concubine would deliver the children literally on the wife's knees, symbolizing that the wife was the legitimate mother of the children. Following this custom, Rachel had Jacob father children through her servant Bilhah. thereby becoming the adoptive mother of Dan and Naphtali. The names of these two children reflect the struggles Rachel faced and the conflict between her and Leah. The name Dan signified that Rachel believed God had heard her plea and judged her case. Naphtali, on the other hand, expressed the rivalry between the two sisters, which Rachel saw as a true battle. Despite her plan having worked, Rachel still desperately sought the possibility of having a biological child. In this context, the Bible records how, in her desperation, Rachel attempted to solve her problem by using mandrakes, which at the time were believed to enhance fertility. The biblical text says that, for the mandrakes, Rachel essentially rented Jacob to Leah. But curiously, it was not Rachel who became pregnant in that episode, but Leah. This demonstrated that sovereignty over life belongs to God. The Bible then says that the time finally came when Rachel's prayers were heard, and she gave birth to Joseph, the man who would later become Egypt's governor, according to God's sovereign purpose to preserve the covenant family. It is worth noting here that when Rachel gave birth to Joseph, she acknowledged that the birth of her son happened by God's power, not due to any supposed properties of a plant or any other means. As time went on, the relationship between Jacob and Laban became increasingly strained, and Jacob decided to flee with his family. Jacob had prospered greatly while working for Laban, and when he fled, he took his family and all his flocks with him. It was during Jacob's departure from Laban's household that the episode of Rachel stealing the idols occurred. When Laban pursued and caught up with Jacob, he accused him of stealing his idols. The Bible clarifies that Jacob did not know Rachel had done this, as he considered the theft so serious that he declared the thief should be handed over. Laban searched the family tents, but found nothing because Rachel had hidden the idols in her camel's saddle and sat on them. It is unclear how or when Jacob discovered that Rachel had committed this act, but we do know that when God commanded Jacob to return to Bethel, Jacob instructed his family to get rid of the foreign gods among them. During Jacob's journey to meet Esau, the Bible again highlights that even after so many years, Jacob still had Rachel as his great love. Therefore, he placed Rachel and her son Joseph in a safer position in the caravan, protecting them from potential harm. Later, as they departed from Bethel and were on their way to Ephrath, Rachel gave birth to her second son, Benjamin. Rachel endured a difficult labor and died shortly after the boy's birth. Initially, the boy was named Ben-Oni, meaning son of my sorrow, reflecting the anguish of Rachel's childbirth. However, Jacob renamed him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. Rachel was then buried on the way to Bethlehem, and Jacob erected a pillar over her grave. The exact location of this tomb remains uncertain, though an ancient tradition suggests it is about 2 kilometers north of Bethlehem. Nevertheless, the tomb's location was still known in the times of Saul. Rachel is also mentioned elsewhere in the Bible. In the book of Ruth, she is remembered as a builder of the house of Israel, alongside Leah. The prophet Jeremiah, in his writings, referenced Rachel's lamentation, symbolizing the destruction of the northern kingdom. Later, this same prophecy was applied to the massacre of the innocents, ordered by King Herod in the New Testament. And this is Rachel's story in the Bible. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. May God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.